customer is a reporter now and what that means for business. But social media also gives us power over our relationships. Just in the introductions, right? These guys mentioned several people that they know through Twitter. Amber and I met on Twitter and then ultimately wrote a book. The thing that's amazing about social media, and the reason we spend so much time at it, is that social media closes the gap. Amber said something to me originally years ago before we started writing the book. She said, what I love about social media is that it sets it up so that my relationships are no longer dictated by geography or circumstance. And that's exactly right. You can meet so many people through these vehicles that you would never, ever, ever know, especially if you live on an island. There's that. The world becomes so much smaller because of social media, and that's why it is powerful and exhilarating and intoxicating for us. Here's an example. A few years ago, this goes back a ways, I wrote a blog post about the NHL, and it was when they did a new TV campaign. This is not the current one, but a couple years ago. And I wrote a blog post about it, and I said, you know, this TV campaign is great, but there's no social media components at all. This is before the NHL got good at social media. And I said, you know, they really missed the boat here because nobody's more passionate than hockey fans. Why do they not allow these fans to be part of this campaign? It's a huge missed opportunity. So I wrote the blog post, I tweeted it out. 45 minutes later, I get this tweet. @Baer, read your blog about the NHL ads with interest. Intend to discuss it internally. It's not 100% on the mark, but warrants a talk. Turns out, that guy's VP marketing at the NHL. So an hour later, we're on the phone talking about social media strategy for the NHL, et cetera, et cetera. That does not happen in the real world. It can't. It can't. Social media brings us together. And that's why it's so powerful, and that's why we spend so much time on it. And it changes the relationship between companies and their customers. It changes that relationship profoundly. And we have to stop marketing at people and start marketing with people. The history of marketing is archery. We find a target audience and we send messages out to that target audience unilaterally and hope that we hit the bullseye. And today, marketing communications is ping pong. We market with people, back and forth, in a dialogue. And social media made that happen. And the world will never be the same. Some of you may be familiar with this graphic. It's called the Conversation Prism. It's created by Brian Solis and Jess 3, and it purports to show you all the different places that your company could conceivably interact with customers or prospects on the social web, far beyond Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, MySpace, and the obvious ones. This graphic should scare the crap out of you. Because this is exactly what we shouldn't be thinking about. Exactly what we shouldn't be thinking about. We've got to stop focusing on tools in social media, and tactics, and channels. It's not about those things. Okay? It's about being social. Not doing social media. Because the thing is, the tools always change. This chart shows you the share of search in 1999. In 1999, Yahoo had 67% of the search business. 67%. Number 2 was Excite. Number 3, Alta Vista. Number 4, InfoSeek. Number 5, Lycos. Anybody rock their Lycos toolbar lately? I didn't think so. I've been in online marketing since '94. I was very active in the business at this time. I can tell you firsthand for a fact that we thought this game was over. Yahoo has won the search business. Game over. The same way we thought Netscape won the browser wars. There's a company that some of you may use to search for stuff that's not on this chart. Something Google. You've heard of them.
Yeah.
Google comes along, builds a better mousetrap, and changes the search business seemingly overnight. And late last fall, about the last time I was here actually, Yahoo sold the smoking wreckage of their search business to Bing for like $5 and a ham sandwich. They're like, hey, just take it off our hands, just get rid of it. They went from a 67% market share to a 0% market share. That's hard to do on purpose, right? Much less on accident. So the tools always change. If we were at Social Media Camp 2008, we'd have a whole breakout session, if not a keynote, on Second Life, right? And before that, on Friendster and MySpace, the tools always change. And if you think that Facebook and Twitter are going to march into the future without anything ever changing, and it's over, and it's always going to be Facebook, you are wrong. Because something will happen. Either someone will buy them and will screw it up for them, see MySpace, or they'll go public and screw it up themselves, see Yahoo. Okay? When business dynamics change, leadership changes, what they emphasize changes, and the game changes accordingly. So stop worrying so much about how good your business is at Twitter or Facebook or anything else. We got to think bigger than that. So I put together this social media strategic planning process to help people work through that program. And I've taught this exact same methodology to lots and lots of big companies, many Fortune 500 companies, lots of big agencies. It's in use in lots of places in the US and Canada. I will share it with you here today. And I actually have a worksheet for this process on my blog, convinceandconvert.com, which is named the #3 social media blog in the world by Social Media Examiner, one of your sponsors, which is nice. First step is to build an arc. Amber will talk about this more tomorrow, but you have to have a group of people in your organization that figure out social media strategy. What are we trying to accomplish here? How are we going to be social? How does social media support our overall business objectives? Because Twitter doesn't make you any money. Not directly, maybe indirectly, but figuring out how it does make you money indirectly is the job of this group. And it's an arc because social media impacts all areas of your business in ways that other things simply do not. Social media impacts sales and operations and customer service and marketing, of course. So you have to have representatives of all of those parts of your company involved in this decision making. Okay, so put together some sort of guidance council, if you will, to help make strategic decisions. Second step is to listen. Okay, to really listen. A lot of companies say that they are listening in social media, and that means they're doing a search for their own name. That's not really listening. There's a lot more going on out there once you get below just the surface of the water. And you need to see what's being said about you today. Who's saying it? Where are they? How much influence or audience do those individuals have? Take the time to dig deep and really listen. Because I'll tell you what, people are talking shit about your company in social media right now as you sit here. Maybe not lots of people, but somebody is. You've got to find those conversations and see what they tell you about your business and where you're at today. Third piece of this program is to understand really what's the point of this, right? What's the point of this exercise? There is no law that says that your company has to be active in social media. Chris is working on that law, but right now, there is no law. So if you're going to put forth the investment, and the investment is considerable, social media is not inexpensive. It's just different expensive. You're trading advertising dollars for labor dollars. Right? You know how long it takes to send 100,000 tweets? A while. A long while, right? And there's a cost associated with that. Okay? So if you're going to get involved in this in a meaningful way, your company needs to understand, what are you doing it for? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to use social media for awareness, to make people aware of your company, your products, your services who are not aware of you heretofore? That's a reasonable circumstance. Are you trying to use social media for sales, to take existing awareness and translate it into actual sales or lead generation, which is a common B2B use of social media? Or are you trying to use social media, as many companies do, as a loyalty mechanism, right? Trying to get your current customers to buy from you more frequently, to get your current customers to tell their friends. Also a reasonable circumstance, okay? Awareness, sales, loyalty. you've got to pick one of those. You can't do all those things at one time in social media because you can't segment your communications in social media the way you can in other forms of marketing and communications. If you want to have an email program or a direct mail program or a print ad program that reaches both prospective customers and people who have bought from you over and over, you can very easily do that in those media. Right? You can say, okay, this email goes to people who have bought from us, this email goes to people who haven't bought from us. In social media, you can't do that because everybody sees your blog posts, your tweets, your Facebook status updates, everything else, your videos, right? You can't segment messaging yet by customer behavior. There's a lot of companies working on the kind of software that will allow that, but for now, you really can't segment your messaging. So you have to pick one of these as an organization and figure out which of those you're really going to emphasize, okay? Now, let's think about that at the individual level. Every customer or prospective customer for your company has a relationship with your business today that can be plotted somewhere on this continuum. Okay? On the left is unaware. They've never heard of you before. They have no idea that you exist. That happens. Second step is aware. They've heard of you, but they've never done anything with you. They've never done business with you. Okay? Third step is trial, where they have purchased from you a single time. Fourth step is repeat enthusiasts, where they've bought from you more than one time, so therefore they are theoretically somewhat psyched about what you have to offer. And the fifth step is the holy grail, right? Advocates. That's where people, your customers, are using their time, their social capital, their resources to market your company. They are volunteer marketers. And really the whole point of business, certainly the whole point of marketing, is to move people from the left to the right on that continuum. And if you think about that through a brand that we're familiar with, Pontiac. Okay, so for me, Pontiac, I'm aware, I'm in that second step, because I know what a Pontiac is, right? But I've never owned a Pontiac. And I've only driven a Pontiac on occasion, maybe a rental car or something like that. Does anybody have a Pontiac here today? Anybody have a Pontiac? Wow. Not really doing well in the social media community, evidently. Anybody ever had a Pontiac? Wow, okay, yeah. See? That's my point, okay? You got 60 people who had a Pontiac, nobody has one today, right? Pontiac failed as a brand to get people psyched, right? People don't say, hey, come on over to my house, I'm gonna put on a pot of chili, we're gonna get Hortons and you can test drive my Pontiac. Like, people don't do that. And they're like, hey, can I ride your Pontiac? People, they don't do that, right? So they didn't successfully get people psyched. Now, I live in Indiana now, but for 40 years I lived in Arizona. And in Arizona, lots of pickup trucks, right? It's almost state law. Everybody has pickup trucks. And if you have a Chevy truck, you almost invariably have the sticker in the back window, the Piss on Ford sticker. It's factory equipment, right? And if you have a Ford truck, you have the Piss on Chevy sticker. It's just how it rolls. Now, have you ever seen a Piss on Pontiac sticker? You have not, I looked it up. People don't care enough about Pontiac to even piss on it. And that's the problem, right? That's the problem. The problem with your business isn't the people who hate you. The problem with your business are people who don't care either way, right? It's the people who are in the middle, the middle. Those are the ones that kill your company. And that's Pontiac's problem. The fourth step in this process is to analyze your audiences. Okay, who are these people that we're trying to interact with in social media? What's their deal? Like, what's their story? And you can look at that through your sort of typical demographic stuff. How old are they? Are they male, female? Where do they live? You know, what's their deal? How do they use social media? And that last part, how do they use social media, is incredibly important. Because not everybody uses social media the same way. This idea that somehow this is how people on Facebook behave is kind of ridiculous when you're talking about 650 million people. Right? That's like saying this is how people in Victoria behave or in BC. Right? So we can't make those broad generalizations. And Forrester Research publishes every year a study that they call the Social Technographics Ladder, which is a very expensive way of saying the report that shows you how people use social media. And they break down the social media audience into 7 rungs on the ladder. At the very top are creators, people like many of you who write blogs, they upload videos, they make content, okay, creators. That's 24% of the US online audience, and the Canadian numbers are roughly similar. I don't have the chart for it, but it's roughly similar. Second group are conversationalists, okay? Those are the hummingbird types, right? Those are the status update people, right? Twitter, Facebook, I'm here, here's what I'm doing. That's the conversationalists, about 37%. Sorry, 33%. And people can be on more than one of these, obviously, because these numbers add up to well more than 100. Critics are people who don't have a blog, but are happy to tell you how much your blog sucks. Delighted to tell you. So that's your sort of Yelp, TripAdvisor, that kind of group. Okay, a lot of reviews, a lot of comments. Collectors are people, and that number, the collectors percentage stays about the same every year. Collectors are people that they're sort of the curators of the web, right? So they use Dig and Stumble and Delicious, and they do a lot of tagging. That's that group. Okay. Then you have joiners, and those are the people who are very social network driven, especially LinkedIn, people who really have a profile on a social network, but don't really do much else with it. Like my mom is on Facebook, but never really does anything. Every like 3 months we'll go in and leave an update, but just sort of has a profile there, okay? Those are the joiners. And then the spectators are the people that consume the content that creators and companies make. So they watch videos, they read blog posts, they download photos on Flickr, okay? And that's a large group of people, 70%. And the inactives are 17%. Those are people who don't do any of those things, which to me is hard to fathom. Seriously, you've never watched a YouTube video? You've never read a blog post? Like, are you in jail? Like, do you have some sort of like Wi-Fi problem? Like, what exactly is your deal? But that's 17% still of people with an internet connection don't use social media at all. But of course, that number gets smaller and smaller every year. So that's social technographics, and I actually use that a lot in my consulting practice. And it makes a difference because you can map demographics to social technographics. So if you know your target audience are women 25 to 34, you can use a free tool that's available on the Forrester website that allows you, which is Forrester.com, and I think specifically it's at /empower under the free tools section. And you can map those demographics to social technographics. You can see, you plugged in here, women 35 to 44 in Canada. That's my target audience. And you can see, we're not streaming this, are we? 15% of that audience are creators, 23% critics, 12% collectors, 63% joiners, 59% spectators, and 21% inactives. Okay? You can do that for any demographic group. And it's important because we're not all Steven Spielberg. But you would think that we are because every company is using the same social media playbook. Let's ask our fans to make a video for us, or whatever, right? And it doesn't matter how good of an idea that is, not everybody wants to make you a video. Even if they love your company. It doesn't mean they want to make a video because maybe they're not creators. That's just not how they roll, okay? So this applies very much at the operational level. 2 examples. A few years ago, Doritos did a contest for the Super Bowl, US football Super Bowl. And it was make us a TV commercial. Then y'all vote on it, and whichever one gets the most votes, we will actually run as our TV commercial. Okay? And they did that, and it was a big success, and everybody loved it. In fact, they've subsequently done it 2 more years. Okay? A few months after Doritos did this, Jim Beam essentially did the same program. Said, make us a TV commercial, and you win fabulous prizes. Okay? And Jim Beam actually made it a little bit easier to participate because they gave fans some video snippets and some ideas, and they kind of made it a little simpler to do it, whereas Doritos was just blank sheet of paper, like whatever you want to do. Okay? So Doritos had 1,961 entries in the contest. Okay? Jim Beam had 300. It's a pretty big difference. Pretty big difference. Okay? So much so that, as I said, Doritos has done it over and over, and I know, because I know some of the people who work on it, that Jim Beam was less than stoked about the result of this program. Okay? 1,961 entries versus 300 entries. Let's look at the social technographics of those two audiences. On the top left is the social technographics for Doritos core audience, 18 to 24-year-old men in the United States, 41% creators. 41%. And an index is at 200. Index is a measure of concentration. So an index of 100 is the average US adult. 200 means that this group, men 18 to 24, are twice as likely, fully twice as likely to be a creator than the average online adult, twice as likely. 41%, 200. Conversely, Jim Beam on the right, 45 to 54-year-old men in the US, creators 14%. Indexes at 67. 1/3 less likely than average to be a creator. 1,961 entries, 300 entries. It's not an accident. You have to give your fans appropriate social media assignments. You can't ask too much of them. Doesn't mean they don't love you, it just means you're asking them to do the wrong things. You have to figure out what is your one thing. Now, I didn't take this picture. I don't know this guy. This picture was taken by Dean Waldo, who some of you may know. He's the community manager for Blue Sky Factory. But I guarantee if you asked 100 people what is noteworthy about this guy, 96 of them would say mullet. This guy is rocking the mullet, right? He even has like the special shirt that sort of frames it like an art gallery. It's like a special mullet shirt. He is committed to the mullet all the way. And as a business, you have to figure out what is your mullet. Because we are in an era of the invitation avalanche, where every single company of every size and description is asking all of your fans and customers to friend me, follow me, like me, watch my video, tell your friends, forward to a friend. Enough. It's too much. And you're already seeing it. Like, all the new research shows that consumers are getting way more selective about clicking the buttons and following and liking and fanning. It's too much. It's too much. If everybody has a special offer, what makes yours so special? You've got to do more than just push coupons and special offers to your fans in social media, because it's a short-term play. You're going to burn them out. Okay? You have to realize that passion is the fuel of social media. Passion is what gets people to get your company tattooed on their arm. It's not features and benefits and bullet points and stupid stuff like how many colors your product comes in. Okay? You have to focus on the heart of your brand, okay? Not the head. What makes people psyched? What makes you really special? And that's almost never anything to do with your products, right? It's about the soul of your company. Apple is not about phones or computers, it's about innovation. Disney is not about theme parks or movies, it's about magic. Volvo is not about cars, it's about safety. It's always been about safety, right? Canucks are about the cup. Gonna be. Gonna be. Cup. I hope they win, or you people are gonna be super smart. You have to figure out what you're about. What's on the other side of the equal sign for your company? You know what this is? Branding. Modern branding, which we've been talking about for 75 years, but we still suck at. Because we get too caught up in it. We get too caught up in the day-to-day circumstances of our company, and we don't take a step back and see what's really special, right? Which is not features and benefits. Now, you can imagine the jubilation. A guy comes into our conference room in Stockholm, Sweden. He runs a small digital marketing agency called Daddy. It's a great name. And you can imagine he walks in and he says, "I've got great news." That was actually more Transylvanian than Swedish. More of a vampire thing. That's not my forte, obviously. I'm not going to do that again. I've got great news. We just got hired to do social media for ketchup. And everybody's like, oh. Because what are you going to do with that? It's ketchup. You're going to go squeeze bottle? Viscosity, we're more tomatoey than the other guys. It's like lame, right? But they did a great thing. Daddy put together this program called Talk to the Plant, talktotheplant.com, based on the philosophy that if you talk to your plants, they grow bigger and hardier and faster and stronger. You guys know that, right? So they put that to the test. They took 2 tomato plants that were brothers, or clones, I guess you'd call it, not brothers. And they grew them the same way. Same soil, same light, same temperature, etc., same water. The one on the left, you could go to this website and type into the box whatever you want. And using a text-to-speech translator and a speaker, you could actually talk to the plant. Right? So you could be sitting here like, hello plant, I'm at social media camp, Victoria, woo! You know, it would actually talk to the plant. And possibly because they don't have anything better to do, 20,000 Swedes took part in this. 20,000 people sent messages to the plants. And they actually did it great, right? It was like full blown. They actually got the director of the Department of Botany at the University of Stockholm to supervise the experiment, make sure it's on the up and up, and they published all these lab notes and stuff. The results were inconclusive. It's kind of a letdown, right? Apparently the one that people talked to did grow bigger, but it wasn't scientifically accurate either. That's not the point. The point is that this program was from Heinz, right? But they're not shouting that from the rooftops. There's a little logo in the middle, a little logo in the corner, right? It's not all about, hey, buy ketchup, we'll send you mustard for free, and download hot dog recipes, and that's not it at all, right? Because this program is not about ketchup. It's about where ketchup comes from. It's about the fact that ketchup doesn't come in ketchup bottle trees. You don't walk out into the fields and pick bottles off the trees, but you would think you did, because nothing is more commoditized than ketchup. And you even have ketchup chips up here, which is amazing. I still don't understand why that never caught on in the US. It's fantastic. Every time I come up here, I fill my suitcase full of ketchup. True story, not kidding. So, next year you guys pay me ketchup chips. If I come back, that's all it takes. I know you can make that happen. So, it's not about ketchup. It's about where ketchup comes from. It's about the fact that ketchup is a farmed product. Tomato farmers. And if anybody has seen any Heinz TV commercials in the last year or so, or actually looked closely at a bottle of Heinz ketchup, underneath their logo now, it says, grown, not made. And all their TV commercials interview farmers and say, hi, I'm Bob, and me and my son Phil, we've been growing tomatoes for Heinz for 30 years, and we're so proud to be part of this American tradition. Right? Their global brand positioning now for Heinz, which is no small company, is grown, not made. And not because some big New York ad agency came up with it, because a 6-person agency in Stockholm understood that modern marketing is about the one thing. It's about the mullet, it's about soul, not features and benefits. Finding the one thing ain't easy though, right? If it was easy, everybody would do it. Everybody would have this fantastic. It's not easy. You have to do some brand anthropology. You have to get off your butt and get out there and actually see customers using your product and talk to people in sales and operations and customer service, because they're the ones who know what's really going on. Marketing doesn't have any idea what's going on in most companies because they're doing marketing, right? Big difference between day-to-day customer interaction and doing marketing, okay? Get out there and see how people are using your product. It'll be a lot easier to find the one thing. Now, the other thing that's really true is that social media is about people, not about logos, right? It's all about the storytelling. When I was a kid, my very first job was as an intern. My first real job was an intern at a PR firm in Phoenix. And one of our clients was Rockford Fosgate. And Rockford Fosgate was, actually still is, a manufacturer of car stereo speakers and amplifiers. So we went on a factory tour, which is always a good practice because we're trying to find that one thing. We went on a factory tour, and they've got the amplifiers are coming down the assembly line. At the end of the assembly line is a guy who looks kind of like this. I don't have the actual picture, but he was like 6'4", 250, long gray beard, ponytail, but wearing a white lab coat and holding a giant rubber mallet. A very strange and arresting image. It was like a motorcycle gang / nurse kind of thing. Weird. So he's at the end, and the amplifiers come along, and he grabs him and puts him on like a sawhorse table kind of deal, takes the mallet. He goes bam, 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 starts, and it bangs on it, right? And then it turns and plugs it in. And if the light turns green, he puts it in a box, and down the rolling conveyor belt thing. So we're standing there with the marketing director, We're like, is he always here? Or is it just like, it's agency day? Like, we weren't really sure what the story was. And she's like, totally matter of fact, oh no, that's Bob. He's our quality control process. Because our customers are primarily young men, and they drive their vehicles very aggressively. They hit curbs and they jump dips, and we want to make sure their amplifier connections stay tight. Because if they don't, it's a terrible brand experience. You're going to lift up the seat, go into the carpet, fix it. They hate that. So we want to make sure those connections stay tight, and Bob is the mechanism by which we ensure that. What? Now this predates social media by like 15 years, at least. But even back then, they let us run a whole campaign about this. It was called Rockford Fosgate. If we can't whale it, we fail it. And just a picture of Bob holding his mallet. We just told his story, right? Direct mail piece, straight show booth, print ads, et cetera, et cetera. And it worked great. Because if you've ever seen a car stereo ad, to this day, they all look exactly the same. Picture of the product, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, next column, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, next column, bullet point, bullet point, web address, phone number. All you do is switch the picture, same ad. This told a story, a personal story about a real guy. And it works. And you have to realize that you probably have a Bob in your company. You just may not know who it is. When we asked the marketing director at Rockford Fosgate, hey, tell us what's special about your company. What makes you different than your competitors? You know what she said? She said, well, we make amplifiers in 5 different sizes. And our competitors only make them in 3. And meanwhile, you've got a guy with a mallet. Right? Find your mullet. Find your stars. 6th step in this process is to figure out your home base and outposts. Figure out, we talked about this a little bit earlier on the podcast, figure out where in social media your fans and customers are and how you can make that work for your business. The big miss that a lot of companies have right now is they try to be equally good at everything. Like, well, you need to be good at Facebook and good at Twitter and good at YouTube and good at blogging and good at whatever else comes tomorrow. And that's not true at all. You have to figure out which of those things, whether it's your blog or your website or your Facebook page or something else, which of those things is your home base, meaning it's the place that you ideally want to interact with customers and prospective customers at that place. It is your primary residence. The other places where your company may be active in social media, Twitter, for example, should intentionally drive people to the home base. Okay? Hub and spoke. Chris Brogan came up with that idea a few years ago, and I think it's fantastic. We use it all the time. When I do strategic planning for corporations, we put together these kind of graphics, a strategic ecosystem that says, in this particular case, Facebook is the home base. I don't always advocate that, but in this case we did. And then other things in social media surround it. Website, Twitter, blog, mobile and location, Foursquare kind of stuff, email, YouTube, Flickr, right? You're trying to use these other sort of vacation homes to drive traffic back to your primary residence, okay? Much more efficient that way. You have to think of all this social stuff as a funnel, right? You are trying to deepen customer relationships using different tools, okay? Much more efficient that way. And the last step is to pick good success metrics. Amber will talk about this a little bit tomorrow. There's a significant portion of the book is dedicated to success metrics and how to pick the right ones. It's critically important. People say, you can't measure social media. I want to smack those people in the head. It's not that you can't measure it, it's that there's too many things to measure. Right? So what do you measure? That's the challenge, right? But you have to think about awareness, sales, loyalty. We talked about that before, right? What is the point of this program? If your goal is awareness, that's one set of metrics. If your goal is sales, that's a different set of metrics. If your goal is loyalty, that's a third set of metrics. There is no one-size-fits-all number in social media. You know what that means? You have to actually do some work. Right? People said, oh, I got into social media, they don't have to do any math. And you were lied to. Right? You do a lot of math. It's all about math, right? Ultimately, you can turn this into a business proposition. I always feel, too, that you can metrics yourself to death, right? That you end up tracking like 15 things. And then you spend all your time tracking and analyzing. You have no idea what it even means. So we really advocate picking 3 solid metrics. Pick 3 things that really make sense for your business. Pay attention to those for a while. And And if you want to pick different metrics, that's fine, but focus your mathematical journey so that you don't drive yourself crazy. Because at some point, the question becomes, what's the ROI of calculating ROI? Right? If you're spending all your time doing Excel, you're not actually doing any social media. So it's like you sort of get into this loop. You can do some things just by tracking socially specific actions. This is a Facebook status update from California Tortilla. California Tortilla is a chain of Mexican food restaurants, actually with no locations in California, which is, I think, fraud at some level. They're based in Baltimore, home of authentic Mexican. But they do a great job in social media. They do a great job tracking their social media. So in this status update, it says, "Hi there, Facebookers. It is a secret password day. Say fresh and get a free chips and queso with any burrito purchase." So before they post that, they send that out to all their store managers via email. It says, today's password is fresh, and it gets you free chips and queso. Store manager tells all the people who work the cash register, today's password is fresh. And people walk into the restaurant and say, fresh. And they give them a free chips and queso. And they code it into the cash register, just as if it had a barcode. It is an audio coupon. And because it's in the cash register, because they're computerized, they can run a report at the home office that says, which of our locations had the most Facebook password redemptions? How many redemptions did we have a different password in Twitter, a different password in the email newsletter? Okay. Now, is that hard? Kind of. I mean, just because you've got to get a lot of people, organized inside the company, it's not that hard, right? I was on the board of a really small theater company in Arizona when I lived there. We'd sell tickets, like last-minute tickets to plays. We put it on Facebook. Okay, come to the box office tonight and say the word Julie, because the play starred somebody named Julie, and you buy one, get one. Okay? You know how we track that? With a pen and a Post-it note. But we still tracked it, right? We tracked behavior, not just number of Facebook fans. Okay? And that's the key, right? You have to measure behavior, not just aggregation. This is an example for a company called Sweet Leaf Tea that Amber will talk about more tomorrow. This program, they needed to get more shelf space. They make lots and lots of different flavors of iced teas. And like a lot of small beverage companies, most stores only carry a couple of flavors. They needed to get more shelf space. So we put together this PDF which says, hey guy you're a shopkeeper, I love Sweet Leaf Tea, I'd really appreciate it if you carried these flavors, checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. Put it on Facebook, send it out in the email newsletter, asked fans to download this, print it out, take it into their favorite store. 2 weeks later, sales reps start coming back into the office saying, man, we've got all these requests for different flavors, I don't know what's going on. Had 500 downloads of this in the first day. What did that take? Well, it took us an hour to make a PDF. That's it. Okay? So sometimes it's not about effort. It's just about getting your fans excited and giving them appropriate assignments. We didn't say, make us a video to tell us which flavor you like best. We said, hit print and walk into a store. Okay? A lot easier. When we talk about ROI in social media, in a lot of cases it's difficult to measure ROI specifically because you don't know who actually did the purchasing. But if you're Sweet Leaf Tea, you don't know necessarily who is buying your tea. Okay? It's easier for California Tortilla because it's their own store. Sweet Leaf Tea doesn't get a report from their local grocery store or the convenience store of who bought, clearly. So sometimes you can't measure ROI specifically in a classic sense. So in that case, and we talk about this in the book, what you want to do is use correlation. So what you do is you track a bunch of different social media metrics over a long period of time. Right? So Twitter followers, blog, comments, whatever you want to come up with. There's some that are better than others. And then you track at the same time business metrics. Revenue, number of sales, average order size, things that actually make you money. And what you're looking for is a simultaneous spike, the way I've got in this black box here. That as new customers went up, so did your social media metrics. Okay? Now, does that mean that social media caused you to get new customers? It doesn't. You can't prove that. But it looks fishy, right? And that's what correlation is all about. Finding things that look fishy. Finding things that happen at the same time. So you can say, hey, when we did better as a business, we were doing better in social media, right? So one of those may be a cause, one of those may be effect, but either way, it's good news. Okay? So correlation is a good way to go in many cases. I'm going to leave you with this. Don't be seduced by the tools. Focus on being social, not doing social. And always, always remember that the goal of any of this is not to be good at social media. The goal is to be good at business because of social media. Thanks very much. I'm Jay.